It is February 20th, 2026. And I thought I'd talk about the real estate market a little bit. I always find this time of year extremely interesting pertaining to the Salt Lake City real estate market. And here's why. We got two buyers under contract this week, and one of those buyers was asking a bunch of questions about what neighborhood they should buy in to get the most appreciation. And the other buyer is a first-time home buyer, and they are committed in their apartment until August of this year. And so they were just starting to kind of look. And we explained to them why it might be really wise for them to just buy right now, even though they have to pay a penalty of 2 months' rent to exit their rental. Here's why. And here's why we changed both those two buyers' opinions of what they were going to do this week. To answer the first question about neighborhood, where's going to appreciate the most, where's the best place to buy, location, 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 right? We told that buyer they were asking the wrong question. It's not about location, actually. Yes, it is when it pertains to where you'd like to live with your family. But when you're talking about appreciation, in general, the lowest median price neighborhood of Salt Lake City versus the most expensive neighborhood, they appreciate in similar percentages when the market rises. So it's not necessarily from a money standpoint about where you buy. It's more specifically about when you buy. And that was the same answer for the first-time home buyer. They said, look, we're in a rental till August, but we want to start looking. And once we showed them what I'm about to show you, they said, oh, forget that. We'll pay a penalty just to exit our rental, and we'll buy something. They went out and looked one time and put a property under contract this week. I think this time of year is always extremely interesting in the Salt Lake real estate market. It all has to do with what we call the seasonality of the real estate market. Simply put, in Salt Lake County right now, this is the entire city, from downtown Salt Lake to Draper, the west end of the valley to the east bench of the valley. There are a total of 2,468 active residential properties for sale. This is condos, townhomes, and single-family homes. 1,296 under contract in escrow right now that people are buying. What does that mean? Well, it means a couple things. One, it means if you're running an absorption report, there's less than a 2-month supply of housing again in Salt Lake. The second thing it means, because look at this, in the last 30 days, there's only been 752 closings. What does this mean? Well, this means the rate at which people are putting homes under contract right now is accelerating very rapidly. Because if only 752 closed in the last 30 days, but almost 1,300 are under contract, it means in the last 3, 4, 5 weeks, a lot of early season buyers have gone out to the market and they put homes under contract. Why are they doing this early season before anyone else really is, before there's articles about the market being hot or whatnot? Well, this happens every year. Whether it's an up market, a down market, a flat market, a sideways market, every single year I watch this. And right after the holidays, early lookers start shopping. And right around Valentine's, the rate at which properties go under contract starts spiking very rapidly. In fact, it goes up 47 to 78% increase from what it was during the holidays around Valentine's every year. And I've watched this for 23 years. Here's why. And this is why these two buyers decided to buy this week. Now, I don't expect you to decipher this spreadsheet, so I will narrate what stands out to me as you're glancing at it. This is a report that shows a monthly snapshot of what the Salt Lake County real estate market did. For example, in January of 26, so January that just ended, 659 homes, townhomes, condos sold for a median sales price of $550. People got on average 96% of their asking price. We had a median price per foot of $251 and 53 days on market. Here's what always stands out to me when I read this report. Simply put, take any given year and look at the lowest median price and then the highest. For example, in 2021, the lowest median price was $415,000 in February, And then the market peaked that year in December at 495. 2022, median price, bottom of the year, January, 500,000. Peak that year, it was May, 560. So from January of 2022 to May of 2022, which is only 4 or 5 months, median price went up $60,000. That's 12%. So in a 4 to 5 month time frame, if you were buying the same house in January versus May, you'd have paid $500 for it instead of $560. That's 12%. And a lot of people say things like, well, I'm going to look and I'm going to save money until the right place comes along. But your biggest factor, especially this time of year, is simply time. And I don't know how many people save an additional 60 grand in 4 or 5 months just to buy the exact same house they could have in early spring or late winter. Okay. 2023, absolute bottom of the market for that year, January, 491. Even in April, because that was a very soft year, this is when interest rates went up. April still hovered around 491. But look, even in that year, which was devastating, was the first time interest rates went up in any significant fashion and remained high. We still went from 491 to 531. Okay, roughly $40,000 of appreciation, which is about 8% in a crummy year, in a matter of a couple of months. 2024, bottom of the market, December, 491, peak of the market, June or July, 555, 60K plus, again that year. 2024 into 2025, low of the market, March 25, 518, May is 555, October's 559. So, again, $45,000, even in a soft year. Point being, this is not an exact science, but we have an extremely seasonal market in Salt Lake City, and it's usually around December, January, February is the bottom of the market for any given year, and around April, May, June is the peak of the market for any given year. Fact, it happens every year, even in slow markets. In a slow or rough market, we still see about 8% appreciation in those years. In a strong market, we see 12, 13. In crazy markets, we've seen 16, 17% packed into that 4 to 6 month period. So the reality is it does become a little less about location. We're just talking dollars right now. That doesn't mean location doesn't matter. It does matter when you're talking schools, your family, and all that. But if you purely want to talk about the economics of your real estate, and you are either first-time home buying or you're deciding to upgrade, it makes the most sense. What matters the most to you is the time at which you buy, especially this time of year. And second to that is interest rate. That's a whole separate discussion that we can certainly have soon. So if you are on the fence, if everything you're looking at online right now doesn't fit your budget, unfortunately, you are crazy to think that for that same budget in the coming months, you will like something. More inventory will come on the market. However, it's going to get more expensive to the tune of 2 to 3% per month from now until June, July. And then it doesn't back off big time, so you can get a deal again. It usually just kind of levels out. So we see the bulk of the appreciation in any given year packed into about February to May, June, July-ish. If you're on the fence about buying, especially first-time home buyers that aren't in the game yet, I'm telling you, watched it for 23 years. Your biggest factor is time, and it really does make the most sense to just go out and buy and contract something right now. Furthermore, we're at the absolute tail end of what has been an over 3-year sort of soft market. And so we have seen sellers negotiate. We have seen sellers being willing to pay closing costs or concessions, and we have seen sellers being willing to do repairs. Here's what will happen as soon as the market really heats up. That will happen March, April-ish. And when we see that, sellers start dialing down what they're willing to give. They stop negotiating. They say no to concessions. They get multiple offers. So not only can you be on the forefront of the beginning of the spring jump, and buy and then watch your house go up somewhere. I'm predicting this year between 8 and 10% in the next 4 to 5 months. But you could also still negotiate a little bit. That window is closing really, really fast. On the 2 buyers we got under contract this week, the first one was able to get a little bit off of list price to the tune of 3 or 4%. The second one is in the first-time homebuyer price range in the high 400s and ended up having to pay a little more than full price for the house. However, they got about a $12,500 kickback concession from the seller negotiated into that price. So it can still happen. You know our slogan here at Utah Cribs. We educate you so you can make an educated decision when it comes to your real estate.